All right, thanks for tuning in to another edition of the OFN Today on the Our Football Network as we talk New York Giants football with Ryan Dunleavy of the New York Post. Ryan, nice talking to you again.
What's up?
Yeah,
Not the co-host this time, huh?
that's right. You're a guest. You'll be our co-host on our second show coming up right after this one.
A flashback to the old days.
That's right. So, Giants football. That's what we talk about today. So let's get right to it. The New York Giants. All right, let me ask you this. Joe Judge, first season, considering everything that happened, including COVID, which is not good for a new young coach like Joe Judge. The way the team responded, got into the playoff race, even though it was a bad division. Was it the type of season that you anticipated when it was all said and done, results-wise, or was it actually better or a disappointment?
Good question. I would say it was slightly better. I picked them to go 4-12. They went 6-10. I think they started 1-5 in close games, one-score games or worse, and then they finished either 4-0 or 4-1. So they were about 500 in one-score games. They were a much better team in the second half of the season than in the first, which is kind of what you'd expect for a team that was installing a new offense, a new defense, new head coaches, in a year where they didn't have any OTAs, limited training camp, no preseason games. So they got much better as the season went along, and because the NFC East was god-awful, they had a chance on Week 17 to win the division. They did their part. They beat the Cowboys, and they didn't get help from Philly, as you and I have documented a lot, and so they didn't make it. But they ended on a high note, and I think one of the important things they did was they entered last season with these awful stretches against Dallas and Philly. They had lost something like 12 out of 13 to Philly and 7 in a row to Dallas, and they beat both their rivals the last time they played. So they don't have to hear that anymore going into next season, and kind of a clean slate. I think this year I'll have the most optimism for the Giants in a while.
Yeah, it turned out to be a blessing that they, considering how their team was going to be, that they were in a division that put them in big games towards the end of the season for a team that's still young in a lot of parts, and that's something a lot of other teams outside of anybody in the NFC East just on the level talent-wise of the New York Giants didn't get the benefit of.
Correct. The Giants just don't have a very good team. I mean, that's the bottom line. They're a young team. They've, shed a lot of salary cap. They haven't got a lot back. They got they traded Jason Pierre-Paul, who's been a monster for the Buccaneers for 3 years. They got back B.J. Hill, who's done pretty much nothing. He's just a guy. They traded Odell Beckham. They got Dexter Lawrence as a draft pick. He's been pretty good, but he's a run-stopping defensive tackle. They got Jabril Peppers. He's been pretty good. They didn't get a superstar back for Odell Beckham. So they're young. The defense is far ahead of the offense. The defense really carried them to 6-10. Patrick Graham, the defensive coordinator, was really the breakout star of the Giants season, not a player. It was Patrick Graham getting head coach requests after the season. So he did a great job, and the offense, that's really it. The offense regressed. Daniel Jones regressed. They didn't have enough playmakers, and they had to play pretty much 14 and a half games without Saquon Barkley, and they might be as reliant on Saquon Barkley as any team in the NFL is on any one player.
Giants have just 6 draft picks as of today, the 11th pick of the draft in the first round, and knowing Dave Gettleman and the way that, his strategy seems to be that he prefers quality over quantity. He's willing to trade up in the draft if he sees a guy that he likes. Do you think that's quite possible with only 6 draft picks?
No, I don't think they'll trade up. For the exact reason you said, they don't have a surplus, and they need depth. They need starters. Forget depth. They need starters. No, I don't think he'll trade up. He could have traded down the last couple drafts. He hasn't. He's never traded down, which is a mind-boggling stat.
That's crazy. Yeah.
I think it's 7 or 8 drafts as the Giants GM plus the Panthers GM has never once in any round ever anywhere traded down. So that would be a good thing to do to accumulate more picks, but it is not his style. So I don't expect it. I think the Giants will probably end up picking exactly where they are at 11 and then exactly where they are at whatever it is, 43.
All right, as far as cap space, they're kind of right in the middle as far as the NFL is concerned. And I always also like to take a look ahead at 2022 because you got to take a look early in the process and find out whether or not a player is going to be extended early or whether or not, obviously, this is something that the general manager is always going to look at as well. And there are three key players to look ahead at in the 2022 offseason. That's Zeitler, Ingram, and Peppers. And Zeitler's the big name in that threesome because of what we've been hearing over the past several days and whether or not Zeitler's going to be traded, whether he's going to be cut. We're also waiting on Leonard Williams, whether he's going to be tagged or not. But Zeitler is interesting because I understand, yeah, you can save some money if you make this move, but isn't he a big part of the offensive line?
Correct. He's their best offensive lineman for a team that was 31st in the NFL in offensive line play, according to Pro Football Focus. So I don't know how you weaken a weakness, but I guess it's possible. To me, the smart thing to do for the Giants would be to offer Zeitler an extension, a 2-3 year extension where you, even if you throw in some voidable years at the end of it, where you lower his salary cap hit in 2021. It's $14 million right now. It's, that's unmanageable. You have to find a way to get that down. His salary is $12 million. So you could lower his salary, give him some extra money in the future, and lower his cap for this year. I think that's the smart thing to do. CBS reported that they've been shopping him. I don't think they have really looked into reducing his salary cap number, so that makes it seem like they're either going to cut him or shop him. So I don't think there'll be much of a market for him. We've seen Trey Turner released. We've seen Andrew Norwell's probably getting released if he hasn't already been. So it's a market where you're not, this year with the lower salary cap, you're not paying guards a lot of money. So I think they'll probably end up parting ways with them, but I think that will be a very big mistake. If the Giants are going to roll with very inexperienced offensive line, I think getting rid of Zeitler is a big mistake.
And we'll break down the offensive line in a little bit, but Leonard Williams is the big name.
Well, that's it, Greg. They go hand in hand. So, if you're going to tag Leonard Williams, and tomorrow is supposed to be the deadline for tagging, but then now there's some talk that they will bump that tag deadline back a little bit. But what people need to know is if you tag a guy, you have to have that money available immediately. You can't kick that problem down the road. So to tag Leonard Williams, which is probably a $19 million tag, you have to have $19 million in cap space. The Giants have about $6 or $7 million right now. So cutting Zeitler gets you to the point where you can tag Leonard Williams, which is nice. And then if you work out a deal with Leonard Williams, then you can, come back and have extra money and sign a guard. But it would have been better to sign Leonard Williams earlier so you didn't have to cut Zeitler in the process.
All right, let's break down the roster. We'll start, first of all, with the quarterback position. And it's all about staying healthy. It's about getting rid of the fumble bug, which he seemed to do a little bit better job last season. But overall, he's got 39 turnovers in 2 seasons so far, 17 lost fumbles. And his play at times this season, it's a completely new offense. Again, everybody had to deal with the issue of not being able to participate during the offseason as well as they would like with a new scheme, et cetera, young quarterback. But Daniel Jones definitely did not progress in year 2. Was a lot of that or most of that not his fault?
No, I wouldn't say. I would say I can't absolve him of blame at all. No, he took steps backwards. He didn't just not progress. He regressed. As a rookie playing for Pat Shurmur, he had fumble problems. I think he had 18 fumbles and lost 12, if I jogs my memory.
Right, yep.
But he threw the team on his back a couple games. He was the only rookie in NFL history with 3 games of 4 or more touchdown passes and no interceptions. he threw the team on his back for wins against Washington and Tampa and game against.
He had a really good game against the Jets.
Yeah, against the Jets. They lost that game, but he played really well. He threw the team on his back. He did not do that last year. He was there. The only way to describe it is he never looked comfortable. He looked like he was fighting himself. He looked like he didn't know where to go with the ball. It looked like a bad fit for him in that offense. So then they were left with that age-old question, Greg, which is, so it didn't work. So do we give him a third offense in 3 years? And if that doesn't work, then we have to say, well, he's had 3 offenses in 3 years. That's not fair. Or do we stick with Jason Garrett's offense just for the do we believe in familiarity, and a second year in the same system is big, but if it's the wrong system, then you're just wasting a year with a second year in the wrong system. They opted to go with the idea that familiarity is bigger than changing. So they're going to stick with an offense that didn't work for a second year and hope that, Jones and Garrett kind of grow together in this second year rather than scrap it. But, there's no right answer to that question. I mean, if it's not the right offense, bringing it back for a second year isn't. You're better off with 3 offensive coordinators in 3 years if the third one is the right guy.
Yeah, I mean, as a Jet fan with a young quarterback, just with everything Sam Darnold's been through, his best season was actually the first season when the offense was different and it was a little bit easier to run. And so if I'm looking at it from that point of view, I'm saying, well, I'd rather just go back to what worked for that quarterback. But that's not going to be the case for the Giants.
Not going to be bringing back Pat Shermer or Mike Shula to run that offense. No, so they're gonna stick with Jason Garrett, and they're gonna have more cooks in the kitchen this year. I think they're gonna have consultants and maybe a pass game coordinator and a run game coordinator, but that's only that's only Jason Garrett's still going to be calling the play. That's window dressing. Jason Garrett's still going to be calling the plays on game day. So that it's really still his offense at the end of the day.
Do the Giants bring back McCoy as the backup?
I think they want to. Fans out there, I know, think the Giants need a better backup. They need somebody who, can push Daniel Jones, challenge him in training camp. It's not just his job right away. That's not how the Giants see it. The Giants see it as they're fully committed to him. They need an in case of emergency backup / mentor. They're not looking to challenge Daniel Jones. And if you're going to challenge Daniel Jones with like a Chase Daniel, a Tyrod Taylor, a Ryan Fitzpatrick, well, then you're going to have to pay that guy $4 million, $5 million, $6 million. The Giants don't have the salary cap space to do that. So I think you're looking at Colt McCoy on a 1 year, $2 million contract.
At running back, with Barkley hopefully healthy again, still you have to go back. There are right now 3 unrestricted free agents in that unit. Gallman is at the top of the list. Is it just about bringing him back? Maybe bringing back another cheap guy or drafting a guy. More than likely bringing back another veteran, a cheap veteran, and you're set because Gallman had his best year last year.
Gallman doesn't want to come back to the Giants. Okay. Gallman believes that he is at worst a co-starter with somebody. And, look, he proved it. The Giants have not been fair to Wayne Gallman, but they have not given Wayne Gallman an opportunity, really. He had a good rookie season. They drafted Saquon Barkley. I don't blame them for that. He's a generational running back. Then they buried Wayne Gallman on the depth chart behind like Buck Allen. He barely played the last 5 games of the 2019 season. Then the new coaching staff came in. They had him inactive week 2 of last season. So, he is not somebody that they were high on. And then all of a sudden last year, kind of on his do or die kind of stretch of his career, he came through with some really big games. He's a tough runner between the tackles. He's a guy who, he's a good short yardage back. He's not going to be a 200-yard explosive running back, but he's a good I think he can be a good, 10 carry a game running back. He's not going to get that with the Giants if Saquon is here. So he wants to go somewhere where he can be the 1 or the 1A. He's not going to be a 20 carry back, but somewhere he can get 10 carries a game. That's what he wants. There's other ways for the Giants to go. They could get a James White as a pass catcher. Obviously familiar with Joe Judge. That's what they wanted Dion Lewis to be this year. He wasn't that. So they could get a younger version of Dion Lewis and James White, or they could get Mark Ingram, who I've heard has some interest in the Giants. A lot of ties there. His former running backs coach at Alabama is the Giants running backs coach, Burton Burns. Mark Ingram's dad played for the Giants, won a Super Bowl with the Giants. So I could think they could go with Mark Ingram as a caddy to Saquon.
Okay.
So no, I don't think Gallman will be back. I think you'll be looking at a different veteran, whether it's a White or an Ingram or somebody else as a backup, and then a undrafted rookie or a late round pick, young kind of running back to round up the three.
And Dion Lewis will also be gone?
Yes, I think he'll be gone this one.
All right, tight end, Evan Ingram. So we can go on and on about Evan Ingram, that's for sure. Yeah, at least he stayed healthy for the first time all season, led the team with 109 targets, had career low 10.4 yards per reception, 1 touchdown, a low catch percentage. That's just Evan Ingram. So
made the Pro.
Yeah, he did. So again, as I said, he's not a free agent this season. He is next season. Is he a trade target?
Oh, for sure he's a trade target. Question is, would the Giants actually release him? Because his salary is not guaranteed until I believe it's March 19th. So they could cut him anytime in the next 10 days and take that $6 million or whatever it is off the books. I don't think they'll do that. Look, for a team that's desperate for playmakers, like the Giants' number one need is offensive playmakers, guys who gain separation from the defense, and they don't have that. I mean, and they just cut Golden Tate. So do I think they're going to give up one of their few playmakers for nothing? No, I don't think so. But I'd actually be very surprised. But Evan Ingram is, he is the opposite of a fan favorite at this point. He's a punching bag for the fans. It's a shame. He's a great guy. He's an incredibly hard worker. He wants to be great. He just, for whatever reason, has this thing where he'll make great catches, but easy catches will go off his hands. And literally, he can't just drop a ball that falls to the turf. He must have grown up on an ancient Indian burial ground or something, because he is cursed. Every time he drops a pass, it's intercepted. It goes right off his hands into another. I mean, it must have happened 6 times last year, where a pass goes right off his hands and into a defender's hands for an interception. It never falls to the turf. Every time it's a drop for Evan Ingram, it's a turnover for the Giants. I'm telling you, it happened 6 times last year. I've never seen anything like it. And it has the fans pulling out their hair. So I don't think he'll get an extension this year. I don't think he'll get cut. I think he'll probably play out this year on the walk year of his contract, and the Giants could look very different front office down next year. This could be his last year with the Giants, but I don't think he has already played his last game.
Okay. And by the way, Caden Smith. Now here's I liked him at college. I thought he was an intriguing player. Didn't work out at San Francisco for whatever reason. Comes to the Giants, and when Ingram was hurt last year, he played pretty well. Matter of fact, this past season in limited snaps, but his catch percentage was 85%. Last year it was 73%. So he gets his hand on the ball, he catches the ball, which is not what Evan Ingram does, but he's not Evan Ingram. I get that. But he seems to.
What is Evan Ingram's catch percentage?
Yeah, 57 last year.
But Caden Smith is your typical, 10-yard curl tight end. Yeah. Evan Ingram is a down the seam game breaker if he catches.
Yes. But look, the Giants played a lot of 3 tight ends, so all 3 guys played a lot, including Toyolo, who had 27% of the snaps. Is a lot for a number 3 tight end. So but
he is strictly a blocker. The Giants could. That's a strain. A $3 million contract. He reduced it today. We don't know what he reduced it to, but your 3rd string blocking tight end should be an NFL minimum guy.
Yes.
So that's $2 million. The Giants are just kind of like, throwing away right there. I don't get it. He adds pretty much nothing, Levine Toilolo.
All right, and then as you mentioned, the receiver situation, wide receiver, Golden Tate's gone, so that leaves a hole at slot. I do want to ask you about Dante Pettis and whether or not you think what the team saw at the end of the season might be, hey, you know what? We got a player here, a high draft pick, didn't work out one team, and all of a sudden the light turns on, whether he's healthy or whatever, and the team B, reaps the rewards. Do you think Dante Pettis could end up being one of those players?
I do. If we're talking about do I think he could be a Pro Bowl second round pick, worthy of his draft status? No, I don't. But do I think he could be a capable, third or fourth receiver in the NFL, a guy who gives you, 27 catches for 290 yards and 2 touchdowns over the course of the season? I do. Plus return some kicks and some punts. Just give you a speed element that defenses have to worry about on a third and long. I think he's a piece they could keep. Do I think that they can go into next season with him as penciled in as one of their top 3 receivers? Absolutely not. So, and you mentioned the slot. I think the idea is to put Sterling Shepard back in the slot where he was for the first 3 years of his career before Golden Tate came. That's where Sterling's his most effective, so I think he'll go back in the slot. Slayton will be on one perimeter, and they need a receiver for the other perimeter. And then Dante Pettis could kind of be your number 4 guy.
And that could very well be their first-round draft pick.
It could, or it could be one of these top free agents. I know they like Kenny Golladay. I think Allen Robinson's out of their price range.
Give me the scenario on how they can afford one of those premium receivers. What does that do to? Does that mean definitely no Zeitler?
I think that would mean definitely no Zeitler for sure. I think that would require getting a contract extension done with Leonard Williams, so he's not tagged at $19 million. So you get a contract done, so his number is $8 million instead of $19 million. I think there's some other, there's some Nate Solder. Maybe you cut Nate Solder, free up another $6 million. I think they'll find a way that they'll get one, well-known household name free agent. I think it'd be a receiver, but this team has plenty of needs. It could be corner, it could be pass rusher. So I think they'll find a way to get one of the good guys. I just know they like Golladay. I think Robinson's out of their price range. Chris Godwin's interesting. Would he shake free in Tampa? Juju Smith-Schuster, I think his personality doesn't mesh Joe Judge's locker room, so I think they'd stay away from that. Will Fuller is injury prone. The Giants tend to not sign free agents who have injuries. That's kind of an organizational philosophy. So maybe Corey Davis from Tennessee. I could see that.
All right. Speaking of Nate Solder, so I want to make sure I got this. If the Giants can actually save more money if they cut Solder after June 1st?
Yeah, if they make him a June 1st cut.
June 1st cut, yeah.
Then they would save most. And that's the case for most free agents.
Sure. Do you think that'll happen?
I really don't know. It's a great question. It's probably the biggest question. I think Leonard Williams will be back, whether it's tag or extension. Nate Solder is really, I think, the question that's the most unknown within Giants world. There's no right answer. You could free up a lot of money by cutting him, but you're still be taking $10 million dead cap. So as much as $6 million cap savings sounds nice, you're still taking on $10 million dead cap. So, and he's not been good in 2 years with the Giants. He's been bad. But on the other side of that, is he still better than Cam Fleming or whoever?
I hope so.
Still, whoever you're going to play at right tackle, Matt Peart, as a developmental second-year player. He's not worth his salary, but is he at his salary better than somebody else at their other salary? It's a really tough question. Not to mention, is he willing to play right tackle?
Yeah.
Because you have Andrew Thomas at left tackle. Nate played right as a rookie in 2011 with the Patriots, hasn't played on the right side since. So now is he willing to come back from a whole season on the sideline and then learn, how to do everything the opposite way to his body, take a step, right tackle to left tackle is basically the thing every offensive lineman say all the time, it's a little, PG-13, is it's like wiping your butt with your other
Oh,
hand. So is he going to learn all that new at age 32 or whatnot? It's really the biggest question.
yeah.
If he comes back, I think that they don't need an offensive lineman, which is nice because you could just start him.
Yep.
But at the same time, they lose a lot of money of cap flexibility if he does come back. So no good answer there, but I would say I would lean towards he's probably back on the roster, but we got a week to find out.
Okay, and now you mentioned Parrott. Now you draft a guy in the 3rd round. He should be starting for you this year, correct?
Correct.
So, do you think that is very, very possible then? If this Solder, well, obviously, look, Solder. If Solder if he's out of the picture, that's what the plan is then.
Well, I think the plan would be him and some other guy,
a veteran,
some veteran $3 million a year guy battling it out in training camp.
Okay, and at
that would be the plan. Yeah.
And at guard, we mentioned Zeitler. So, what's going on at left guard? Because we've talked a lot about Will Hernandez. And Shane Lemieux comes in, doesn't really play all that well, but held on to the job. I'm not sure what that says about Hernandez when he came back. So what's the guess there at left guard?
So here's the strange thing, right? Like we say in sports all the time, you hate to see a guy lose his job to injury, right? Like, Drew Bledsoe, Tom Brady is the most famous example. Like Drew Bledsoe didn't lose his job. He got hurt. Tom Brady won it. Like, Will Hernandez, this is even more unfortunate. He didn't lose his job to injury. He lost his job to COVID-19. Like, he had played every snap of his career for the first 40 games of his career. Never missed a snap. Got COVID, missed 2 games, and then never became the starter again. The Giants kept playing Shane Lemieux, who's a good run blocker, a terrible pass blocker, and Hernandez couldn't overtake him. Very strange. Look, the Giants' offensive line goes hand in hand, right? Like, sure, you could start Matt Parrott at right tackle if you weren't starting a second-year player at left tackle in Andrew Thomas. You could cut Kevin Zeitler if Will Hernandez was an all-pro caliber guy, if he was playing like the number 33 overall pick in the draft. You could let go of Hernandez if Solder was, worthy of a $16 million contract. The problem is everybody's a question mark, which is why I don't think you can cut Zeitler. And it's like, even if you hit on Parrott, well, if Thomas stinks, that only evens out. Even if you do the right thing with Solder, then that doesn't mean Zeitler's right. Like, it's just this whole messy 5 question mark offensive line. And to me, you want the least question marks you can, because the worst thing that could happen is January 1st, 2022. You say, well, we still don't know if Daniel Jones is any good because the offensive line was so bad. So you have to find a way to have the least question marks possible on the offensive line, so that if your offense sucks again, it's Daniel Jones's fault and nobody else's.
Now, you mentioned, Lemieux, who's a better run blocker. Hernandez is a better pass blocker. So do you think that's the reason that Lemieux stayed in over Hernandez, is that the team, they want to be more of a power running team? Lemieux's better at that, so we're going to go with him. Give him a shot.
I think that's part of it. I think there's also the famous, our guys, their guys, like Joe Judge and his coaching staff drafted Lemieux and they inherited Hernandez. I think there's some of that to it, Look, it was a Giants offensive line. Since Joe Judge got hired, they're now on their 3rd offensive line coach. And Joe Judge has only been on the job for 14 months. So they're on their 3rd offensive line coach. Offensive line has been a disaster for the Giants going back to 2013. So
who's the coach now?
It's Rob Sale.
Okay.
He was
and why did he take over for the other guy?
So Colombo got fired midseason. Got in a heated argument with Joe Judge, who was bringing in Dave DeGuglielmo to be a consultant. Colombo balked at that idea, so he got fired. DeGuglielmo took over on an interim basis.
Just interim, okay.
Yep, the Giants offered him a contract to come back. It wasn't a contract he wanted, so he went to Louisiana Tech to be their offensive line coach, and the Giants dipped into the college ranks for Rob Sale.
Okay.
So they're a different offensive line coach, which isn't ideal for a position that has so many
That's
question
true.
marks. And that's really the nuts and bolts of the Giants
All right.
again.
And by the way, Cam Fleming, could he be that veteran that just resigns and
Yeah, he could be. I mean, I guess it's the devil you
yeah.
know versus the devil you don't know. I mean, they know what he is. They're not. He's not going to be lightning in a bottle for them, but he's serviceable.
And this is also a potential first-round draft pick.
I don't think. Well, again, that depends on Nate
Yeah.
Solder. If Nate Solder's on the team, you have nowhere to
Sure.
play your first round draft pick. So you can't have Andrew Thomas and Nate Solder and put your first round draft pick on the bench. If Nate Solder retires or is not on the team, then certainly Northwestern's Rashawn Slater, I think, comes into the picture big time at 11.
Okay. Yeah, because if you take a look at okay, that's interesting. All right. You think a guard can actually, because that's the other thing you got to think about is that it's centers and guards, especially, don't usually get drafted that high unless they're really good.
But Slater's the tackle, right? He's so
Yeah,
if
but
Solder,
as a guard here, but then again, they're interchangeable sometimes.
yeah, I think he's a right tackle. So
Okay. Well, that's the
if
other thing. I mean, if that means hurt. I mean, that means you didn't really have faith.
correct,
Yeah.
correct. That means you didn't have faith in Matt Pert. Correct.
So chances are, offensive line is probably not going to be their first round draft pick.
I would think the most likely case is wide receiver and then cornerback. But there's a scenario. I put this out the other day. If this is a realistic worst case scenario for the Giants, if the first 10 picks are 3 quarterbacks, 3 wide receivers, Kyle Pitts, 2 cornerbacks, and Penei Sewell, the Giants are in a lot of trouble. Then they can't pick one of the top 3 receivers. They can't pick Kyle Pitts. They can't pick Penei Sewell. They can't pick Caleb Farley or Patrick Surtain.
Well, that actually sounds like that's exactly what's going to happen.
Well, a 4th quarterback could get into the top 10.
That's
or
true.
Micah Parsons could get into the top 10.
Sure.
And then one of those guys falls, and you're okay.
All right, on defense, we talked about Williams. The defensive line, well, Tomlinson, and first of all, Tomlinson has to be back, right?
I mean, he's a free agent, and I don't know that they have the money. Look, if Leonard Williams is their priority,
okay.
If they're going to get one of those 2 guys, it's Leonard Williams because he rushes the passer.
So he's going to be overpriced. Somebody will offer him a much bigger deal.
I think he'll get a Jason Hargrave type $9-10 million contract, and I don't. Giants. They love him. They'd love to have him back.
Sure.
He does what Gettleman loves, stopping the run. But I just think he's more of a luxury for a good team, and the Giants are not at that stage. So I think he'll probably get a good contract somewhere else that the Giants can't match.
Does that mean B.J. Hill moves to nose, or they try to re-sign Austin Johnson?
Probably a combination of the 2. Yeah,
okay.
B.J. Hill and Austin, try to get away with B.J. Hill and Austin Johnson. In the middle of really their 2 prized defensive linemen, Leonard Williams and Dexter Lawrence.
All right, at linebacker, Martinez, he was a revelation last season, reuniting with Patrick Graham. That sure worked. Tay Crowder for a 7th-round draft pick.
Mr. Irrelevant.
Yeah, and look, it's not that he played all that well, but he did play. And so he got some experience before, and he missed some time with a hamstring injury, but maybe he's the guy that they could, if they feel like confident and okay, all right, you got a nice deal there for a 7th rounder, but Carter, he went down with an Achilles. The team cut Mayo. I was kind of surprised they cut Mayo, but the team pretty much after that, with Fackrell as an unrestricted free agent, they've got some major needs outside, don't they? They need an edge rusher for this 3-4 defense.
They absolutely do, in the worst way. There's really not one worthy of the 11th pick. So there are tons of free agents. If you believe in Matthew Judon or Bud Dupree or Yannick Ngakoue or somebody like that, those are very pricey free agents.
Yeah.
But that's what they need. I mean, look, the Giants have tried and struck out on the mid-round free agent. Lorenzo Carter really has not done much at all in 3 years. Shane Ziminez is pretty much, they took Carter in the third round of 2018. They took Ziminez in the third round of 2019, and neither guy has really made any kind of contribution. So they've tried the mid-round draft pick. It hasn't worked. They've tried the mid-level free agent. Kyler Fackrell was okay. Marcus Golden was a home run, 10 sacks in 2019, and then they re-signed him and traded him last year for a sixth-round pick. So they got plenty out of Golden. That's a 1 out of 4 batting average. So with Fackrell, Ziminez, Carter, and Golden. So I think they need to stop kind of looking on the cheap and go out and get themselves a proven pass rusher, because as Giants fans know, the Giants are at their best when they can rush the passer. I mean, that's kind of the formula for this franchise. They've gotten away from it, whether it's Strahan, Pierre-Paul, Tuck, OC, LT. The Giants are a pass rushing franchise. They've gotten away from it, and they need to get back to it.
As far as the top outside linebackers that Arlads has ranked, and again, I don't know if he fits exactly what the Giants are doing, but I'm a big fan of Joseph Asai, the kid from Texas. Like you said, 11, that's not where these guys are going to go, but David Gettleman has never traded back before. Right. That would be the perfect opportunity if you can't get what you want there. Trade back, get some extra picks, and then you can take an edge rusher.
Correct, you could, but it's not typically what they do. So I think you're probably looking at another second or third round guy, and to me, the batting average they have there suggests you can't try that again.
All right, and in the secondary, Bradbury was also a huge deal. What a great year he had.
My God.
And that's it, though. Corner. There's a lot of problems there. So what are they going to do? I mean, like you said, this could be their first pick.
The Giants had I haven't seen anybody rank it, and I don't know off the top of my head, but I can't imagine many teams had a better free agency last year than the Giants did. I mean, Martinez was an absolute stud. Bradbury was a Pro Bowl stud. Logan Ryan was a revelation as a leader and a good player. Graham Gano was automatic as a kicker. I mean, those are 4 bang, overachieving free agents. No, you're right. Number 2 corner is a big problem for the Giants. They've had a revolving door there for years. Part of the problem is DeAndre Baker, obviously a first-round pick who got cut after 1 season. Sam Beal, a third-round pick who opted out last season.
And he hasn't played well. He hasn't been able to stay healthy anyway, right?
Correct. So they've wasted some draft picks there. Corey Ballantyne, they tried, cut him. They've wasted some draft picks on corners. Julian Love is a better safety than he is a corner. So they've wasted some draft picks on corners, and they ended up having to go through last year with like Isaac Yadam, Ryan Lewis, a bunch of like off the street kind of guys. They did okay patching it together, but certainly when you get a fresh start like this, you need a veteran caliber cornerback. You don't necessarily need another star. Bradbury's your star. He can play physical. He's long. You need a guy who can maybe keep up with the other team's fast receivers. Just a veteran guy, a 1 year, $3 million, 1 year, $4 million kind of guy, not a league minimum. Sure. Who is this guy kind of guy?
Unless it's their first pick in the draft.
Correct, unless they decide to really load up. Secondary is already the strength. Safety is the strength of the team. Bradbury's a good cornerback. They could load up on secondary, which the Patriots did for years with McCourty, Harmon, Malcolm Butler. They could just load up in the secondary and say that's the strength of our team, and put a Caleb Farley or a Patrick Surtain opposite Bradbury, and then it's all of a sudden it's very hard to throw the ball against the Giants.
Is Darnay Holmes I can't say definitely, but is the Giants, that's our guy in the slot?
Yeah, that's their thought process.
Okay.
He was good. He was okay. He was okay. The Pro Football Focus rankings didn't like him. He was down in the hundreds, I think, of cornerbacks, but he didn't allow a touchdown pass. So he was okay. He was about what you would expect for a 4th-round rookie. He didn't play better than that. He didn't play worse than that. He played like a 4th-round rookie. And like I said before, they have had, other rookies not match their draft status. So I think Darnay Holmes was fine. I think that's their plan going forward, is that he'll play in the slot and he'll get better the more he plays.
All right, and then to wrap it up, give me a ranking, a top 3 of needs. You're going to say what? Receiver number 1.
Receiver number 1, pass rusher 1A, and then 3 would be, if Solder comes back, then I would say it is corner, and if
he doesn't, it's offensive line.
Corner. I'd say it's corner either way, because you'd go with Matt Peart or Cameron Fleming at right now. I think it's 1 and 1A are pass rusher, receiver, then a drop off to 3 is cornerback number 2.
Yeah, and look, offensive line is just all in the air, as you said, because we got to wait, first of all, on Zeitler, on Solder.
Yeah. It's just domino. That's all going to fall at one time.
What's your gut tell you? Zeitler gone, or you going to be here?
My gut tells me that Zeitler's probably gone and Solder's probably back, but I would do the opposite if I was them.
And Leonard Williams will be tagged, and then he'll sign a long-term deal.
I mean, that's what the Giants hope, but that was their hope last year when they tagged him. So I don't think they'll let him go. Will they sign a long-term deal? I mean, if they offer him $25 million, they'll sign a long-term deal. If they keep offering him 16 or 17, he won't.
Yeah, that's interesting because they tagged him last year and tried to sign him long-term, and he didn't have anywhere near the breakout season that he had this past season.
Correct. So if they, I think what'll probably end up happening is they'll sign a 4-year, this 4-year, whatever it is, 4-year, $78 million contract. That's what I think will probably happen.
All right, sounds good, Ryan. Thanks, as always, talking Giants football. What are you going to be doing covering the Giants for free agency and the draft? That's going to be your main deal, or are you also going to do a lot of NFL stuff too?
Yeah, I'll probably do a little bit of all of it. Some Giants, some Jets, some NFL-wide. Probably mostly the Giants. Gettleman and Joe Judge talked this week. So we'll hopefully have some clarity on their thinking.
All right, Ryan. Appreciate it as always. We'll talk to you in a little bit when we talk NFL free agency, which is right around the corner.
Okay, sounds good.